Hello ladies and gentlemen, today this is going to be a bit of a short one while I work on other projects and get things ready for my next couple of reviews. I am still kind of in the Sonic territory because the next review after this is going to be an obscure Sonic arcade game, and then I'm going to lead into the 32X and Knuckles Chaotix. Then I'll be done with Sonic for a bit and I'll work on other projects. But this is a short but a fun one. Ladies and gentlemen, I was able to play the Simpsons arcade game made by Konami. Ah, the memories. This wasn't my first time beating this game by any means, and I'm not going to lie, I didn't really want to play through as Marge, but hey, better than playing as nothing at all. I had to pause there for a moment because I just realized that I made a Simpsons reference. It feels like I'm wearing nothing at all. Ned Flanders, yeah, that's classic. Didn't realize I did that. That's my bad, honestly, but hey, it is what it is. This game has a lot of memories for me, though. Beating it with several random other kids in a small arcade in a small town that I grew up in. Those machines were all sold, sadly, and I never had enough money to grab this when it went digitally on sale on consoles a while back either. Unfortunately, without emulation, this could very well be considered lost media. And that is indeed how I got it running at this point. Hey, if another digital copy goes on sale, I'll be one of the first people to pick it up. But for now, this is the only way I actually have access to play the game realistically. It isn't like I hate the show, you know, The Simpsons. After all, actually, I loved it. Well, back in the day, I loved it anyway. I loved the early seasons, all 20 of them. Eventually, I did stop watching. Seemed like it got a little stale, I suppose. Still, I watched a lot of The Simpsons growing up, despite not really being old enough to really understand all the jokes and jabs. But it was a brilliant show. What better way to do a cartoon than basically doing an off-the-wall sitcom that wasn't the Jetsons or the Flintstones? An adult cartoon, anyway. I forgot to write the word adult, and now I'm kicking myself. Primetime television. And make it a bit more mature than those shows, though, the Jetsons and the Flintstones. And even those primetime shows, yeah, voila. You got one of the longest running animated shows of all time. Really, mostly competing with SpongeBob on that whole front. One of the days I'll have to play some SpongeBob games. For now, The Simpsons had a large amount of video games, just like SpongeBob. But one of the best, albeit shortest, was this old arcade game. So let's do this. Let's take on Mr. Burns! So let's recap this story. And the Simpsons are just, walking around. And Smithers, works at the power plant, Smithers, suddenly robs a jewelry store. Huh. So for those of you who don't know, Smithers, he's pretty mild-mannered and not an armed robber with bombs. Normally he's the assistant to Mr. Burns. Anyway, the priceless jewel that he nabbed ended up in Maggie's mouth as she sucks on it like it was a pacifier. Maggie's the baby of the Simpson family and more or less the main reason for this adventure. The Simpsons, in my case Marge, heads off to save Maggie from Mr. Smithers, beating the absolute crap out of anyone in her way. Eventually, after a lot of chase scenarios, zombies, a bear, and even a dream world, the family managed to hit up the TV studio and find Smithers heading for the power plant nearby. At the plant, they fight Smithers, and after beating him up, the family takes on Mr. Burns in a mech suit. After defeating Burns, the family grabs Maggie and head home. A simple plot, of course, and Burns as the bad guy does kind of make sense, but overall, this doesn't really follow established characters at all. However, there's a reason for this. The game was developed pretty early in the show's lifespan. Smithers even has his blue hair and white lab coat still. See, there was an error in the first episode he ever appeared in. He was portrayed as having darker skin and blue hair, but originally was supposed to be yellow like most of the other Simpsons, and had gray hair. They fixed him quickly, but the game still uses most of that original design. Hell, Smithers mostly wears green instead of white normally. Obviously not in his first appearance, though. Overall, I don't mind the plot, though, despite the issue with Smithers himself, because the rest of it does really work well. Maggie sucking on a priceless gemstone, that girl was always trading pacifiers, and the family working to save her works really well as a plot for a, video game. Burns would probably want that gem for himself, and he's pretty greedy, so it does kind of make sense. Smithers stealing it for him, maybe not, but the Burns thing, absolutely. Meanwhile, for an arcade cabinet in 1993, these sprites look amazing. They look a little off sometimes, don't they? But, they were working with, again, early colors and designs. Overall, they did a fantastic job. The only real issue I'd have to say that I have is that the boss fights are all original designs to my knowledge, excluding Mr. Burns and Smithers. Or at least, so I thought. Doing research, this first wrestler guy did actually show up in an early episode, very briefly. This Krusty Balloon at least looks a lot like Krusty the Clown, even though it is somewhat of an original concept. These mobsters and this drunk guy are original though, although the Kabuki Warrior and the bowling ball, yeah, they're original too. So I was mostly right. Oh well, the locations feel like both the Simpsons and video game tropes, so I guess that's okay. Downtown Springfield, the cemetery, the woods, pretty standard stuff all things considered. The TV studio works great for creative ideas though, and the Dream World was absolutely a trip. Moe's Tavern was great though, because it was more underground and a lot cooler than in the actual TV show, but it was at least a place from the TV show. So that does actually work out. There are a ton of cameos from other Simpsons characters though, so that works out well too. Even Rabbits from A Life in Hell, a comic Matt Groening used to write. I apologize if I butchered his last name. But he did help create The Simpsons, and that comic was one of his early works after all. So it's actually kind of cool to see these rabbits as a nice little cameo. Marge almost had rabbit ears too. Actually, if Marge is electrocuted in this game, you can see how she has rabbit ears underneath her hair. Yeah, that was dropped in the show, but it lives on here as an Easter egg, which is also totally awesome. Kinda glad I got stuck playing Marge for this playthrough just so I could show that, so yeah. While the boss fights aren't super recognizable, it is still really cool to see how much love and detail entered into the game. Especially since some of these are really obscure now, right? Yeah, these details. They're obscure, and I love it. And as such, I do feel that this game is incredibly charming. The gameplay isn't super original, though. You have a variety of jump and standard attacks with the weapon of choice. All the characters roughly play the same, and some of the characters have team-up moves, but overall nothing too different. Bart is a skateboard, Lisa is a jump rope, Homer just punches people, and Marge uses a vacuum as her attacks. Overall, this game plays similar to another I used to play a long time ago. Yep, this game is made from the same company who made a lot of the TMNT arcade games, which is perfectly fine. It is pretty simple, but something you get weapons like garbage cans or hammer to use. Yeah, they're powerful, but they're a bit unruly at the same time. But overall, that's it. You can grab these weapons or just keep pounding everybody else with your weapon of choice with the character of choice. I am saying things way too complicated for a game that is this actually simple. It's a simple beat 'em up, people. You press a button, you fight. That's it. You can pick up weapons, you fight with it. That's it. So, I apologize for my overly convoluted explanation. Overall, incredibly simple to pick up, but kind of a difficult to master style beat 'em up for 4 players. Even though I didn't showcase any of that crap, I only played with 1 character. It's great. It's great. It's great. I'm having fun with this review, guys. I apologize. Moving on before I become completely animated here, the levels do make things a bit more interesting. The first level is just downtown Springfield, though there is a random firefighter as a mid-boss for no particular reason. Yeah, he doesn't show up anywhere else, so I'm counting him as a mid-boss. The real boss is the wrestler, though, and he's pretty simple but kind of tough. He hits hard, but he's easy to kind of predict, too. The amusement park isn't too terribly tough either. There are different enemies here. There's a teacup mid-boss fight, which is kind of fun. The boss is a lot bigger and even easier, all things considered, though. It's the Krusty Balloon. It stays in one area, and you can go up and beat it up. It's pretty easy to dodge, and it actually makes it easier to do damage on it, so yeah, it's way easier to fight. The cemetery has actually zombies doing the Thriller dance and an elevator fight towards the end. Moe's Tavern is also really interesting because you can jump up on the pool tables in the bar and fight there. The two bosses from these areas are pretty standard though. The cemetery has the two mobsters teaming up, almost like Bart and Homer can. Moe's Tavern ends with a fight with some random drunk guy whose alcohol levels are so freaking high, he actually spits fire. Jeez, dude, I thought Barney had drank a lot. Which, fun little thing, Barney cameos in this level is trying to help you guys out, but he's drunk, so he ain't doing squat. It's fun. I love it. Next is the forest area with all sorts of new enemies, including a Bigfoot-like creature that looks a lot like Homer, a reference to the actual show. This ends with a fight with a bear, and the bear actually appeared occasionally beforehand, similar to the two mobsters. They showed up in earlier levels as well. Dreamland is my favorite level, though. You fight Marge-like heads, empty suits handling radioactive materials, donuts, saxophones, a Bart Devil or two, which shows up when you die, and a giant bowling ball. It's great. Easily my favorite level, with the bowling ball fight being 3 phases for some odd reason. This place is really fun, though. The final act is, the TV studio. They have you fighting ninjas, probably a callback to TMNT, and a giant robot as a mini-boss with an alien nearby. The boss here is a shogun from Japan using a spear and ninja minions. He's actually really tough. There isn't another level though after this. It's just a series of boss fights to the end boss. Smithers is just a bomber. He isn't too taxing to take out by any means, but Mr. Burns is a beast with a mech suit. This thing shoots nukes out even. He has several different forms and phases, some more bulky, some faster, but overall it's a decent final boss fight for this game. And overall, while the opponents are a lot tougher than they probably should be, this is a quarter muncher after all. The levels do work really well. So is this game loaded with a bunch of secrets? Not really. There's a couple of weapons that you can find throughout the levels, maybe some health pickups that you might not have known about in trees or whatnot, but for the most part, no. There are some mini-games in between 2 of the levels you can play though. They're exactly the same. You press buttons really fast and either fill up a balloon or smack one of the Simpsons awake for a high score. Yay? Look, this is an arcade game. A game which is built to be fun, but also drain quarters. This is a simple but very short game. Overall, I did like it. I still recommend playing this classic if possible, though there is an iOS remake I hear, and I hear it's pretty good, but not as many levels. Nothing beats the classics, am I right? Regardless, getting a hold of the classic is very difficult at the moment. I still recommend it. I say it's great. The plot is a little weird, knowing Simpsons lore, but nothing bad. The only real issue is replaying the game doesn't really come to anything. You play until there are credits. Maybe you try for a higher score, that's just about it. That's to be expected from an arcade game beat-em-up though. Just keep in mind it's an early 90s beat-em-up. And you'll probably have a lot of fun. Nice to see it still holds up after all these years though. However, if you aren't a Simpsons fan, then there may be a bit of an issue here. I still say the game is fun, even without the Simpsons background, but you lose a lot of the charm. Then the game goes to good or even okay rating with how simple but fun the gameplay actually is. Rating an arcade game is kind of weird if I'm going to be honest, especially a third-party arcade game. Yeah. Still, as a Simpsons fan, solid 8 out of 10 rating for sure. Like I said, this was a short one today. Next time I may explore something a bit more obscure, but just as short because it's another arcade game. There's this old Sonic arcade game that never made it out of Japan to my knowledge. And I messed with it. I played it. I've already written the script. It's down the hatch, so it will be coming out next. Until next time, like, subscribe, comment, hit the bell for live updates, and we'll see you next time, my minions. Eventually, we will hit The Simpsons again, but for now, we're going back to Sonic. I just had to take this little detour because, now that I got the emulator working, kind of, again, I could only play as Marge, I had a lot of fun with this. I really wanted to play this again, so hopefully they'll bring it back to the consoles one day, and when that day comes, yes, I will buy it. Till next time, my minions, take care.